You live on a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The nearest landmass is 2,000 miles away. You have no metal tools, no wheels, no horses, no cranes. You have sticks, rope, and about 1,000 people. And someone, some absolute maniac, turns to the group one morning and says, "Right, we're going to carve 900 stone heads, each one the size of a house. Then we're going to drag them across the island." And everyone just goes along with it. Not one person said, "Mate, we could just build more huts." Not one person said, "We're literally running out of trees and maybe we should address that first." Everyone picked up a rock and started carving. And it was not just Easter Island. In Turkey, nomads who were still living in caves built a temple so advanced that archaeologists refused to believe the date when they first tested it. 12,000 years old, before farming, before permanent homes, before the wheel. These people had no fixed address, and they built one of the most sophisticated stone structures in human history. It's like buying a state-of-the-art home theater system before you even have a roof to put it under. In England, people dragged 25-ton stones from Wales to 200 miles and stood them in a circle in a field. Not a city, not a farm. A circle in a field. And in Egypt, someone decided the best use of 20,000 workers and 20 years was to build a tomb so enormous it is still one of the largest structures ever made by any human civilization. The question is not how they built these things. We know how. Ropes and ramps and a genuinely incomprehensible amount of human effort. The question is why? Why would people with difficult lives, limited food, and very real survival problems spend generations dragging rocks around for absolutely no practical reason? Why did they choose the difficult version? The easy answer is religion. They built it for the gods, for the dead. It was sacred, spiritual, beyond rational explanation. And that is partially true. But it is also a bit of a cop-out, because it raises a much more interesting question. Why did the gods always seem to want something enormous? Every ancient civilization had religion, but only some of them built things so large they still confuse modern engineers. And those civilizations had something in common that had nothing to do with their gods. They were all competing with their neighbors. Let us go back to Easter Island. The Rapa Nui arrived around the 12th century. Multiple clans, each with their own land, their own chief, their own identity. And at some point, nobody wrote this down, so we are piecing it together from the archaeology. At some point, one clan chief had an idea. If I build a massive stone statue of my ancestor on the coast, staring inland, watching over my people, that tells every other clan on this island exactly how powerful we are. The statue was not for the gods. The statue was for the neighbors. And it worked, because the clan down the coast looked at it and thought, right, we're building too. Archaeologists at Binghamton University, using drone imaging to map the quarry in 2025, found that the 900-plus statues were not built by one unified society under one king. They were built by multiple independent clans simultaneously, each with their own separate quarrying area, competing in stone. This was not a civilization building monuments. This was 30 different groups of people in a very expensive argument about who was most important. And the statues kept getting bigger, not because the gods demanded it, because the clan down the road built one taller than yours, so you built one taller than theirs. The largest moai ever attempted was 70 feet tall and weighed 270 tons. It never got finished. It is still lying in the quarry, half-carved, because at some point even the ancient Rapa Nui had to admit that was probably enough. Anthropologists have a name for this. They call it costly signaling. The idea is simple. Anyone can say they are powerful. Words are cheap. But if you want to prove it in a way nobody can fake, you do something so expensive, so difficult, so completely unnecessary that only someone with real resources and real influence could possibly pull it off. Think of a peacock. That enormous, colorful tail does not help it fly. It actually makes it easier for predators to catch. But a peacock with a giant tail is saying, "Look how healthy I am. I can waste energy on this ridiculous tail and still survive." The pointlessness is the point. A 20-ton stone head serves no practical function. It does not grow food. It does not provide shelter. It actively uses up resources that could do all of those things. That is exactly why it works. Because anyone looking at it knows this clan had so much surplus, so much manpower, so much organizational power that they could afford to waste all of it on a rock with a face on it. The monument is not the product. The monument is the evidence. It is the ancient equivalent of someone parking a Lamborghini outside a house. Not faster, not more practical, not for getting to work. It is for the neighbors. It has always been for the neighbors. But here is what costly signaling does not fully explain. Göbekli Tepe was built by nomads, wandering tribes who met seasonally. There were no permanent neighbors to impress, no rival clans watching from across the valley. So why build anything at all? The archaeologist who spent his life excavating the site believed the answer was not competition. It was the opposite. It was belonging. If you want a group of people to cooperate, you can give them a practical task, dig a well, build a fence. But once the well is dug, everyone goes back to their own huts. The cooperation ends. A project that takes years, decades, generations, that requires something else. A shared story, a shared purpose, a shared identity. Every person who dragged a stone to Göbekli Tepe was saying, I was here. My hands shaped this. This thing exists partly because of me. And that thing will still be standing long after I am gone. The building was not the point. The building together was the point. We didn't build giant things because we were civilized. We became civilized because we built giant things. And here is the part that should make you slightly uncomfortable. We still do it, right now, today. The Burj Khalifa is 828 meters tall. Nobody needs an 828-meter building. The top floors are barely occupied. You could build 20 functional skyscrapers for the same cost. It exists for one reason, to be the tallest thing anyone has ever built. Nations spend billions on stadiums that get used 12 times a year. Cities compete to host the Olympics, a 2-week event that costs more than most countries' annual budgets for no reason other than to prove they could. The Rapa Nui cut down every tree on their island to transport their statues. They caused a complete ecological collapse, destabilized their own civilizations. And they kept building because stopping felt like losing. The same instinct that drove a clan chief on Easter Island to carve a 70-foot stone head, the need to signal power, to prove belonging, to leave something behind that says, we were here and we mattered. That instinct never went anywhere. We just changed what we build.